Hello, my name is Megan Barner, and I am a health and wellness coach and physical therapist who helps individuals with POTS and chronic fatigue learn how to rebuild their energy to thrive again in their lives. I'm very passionate about helping this population as I myself have these conditions along with a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that I have been navigating over the last decade plus, and I'm happy to say that I am now thriving, and with guidance you can step by step get back to living your life more fully and not feeling exhausted and brain fogged and in pain on the sofa. So today's topic is one that comes both from my own journey and again from working with clients, as many of my topics do, how to navigate rough days. I'm going to be sharing some tips towards the end of the video, so stay tuned. I do want to remind all those who are watching or listening that what I'm sharing is for informational purposes only, and that it is important to check with your own care team before implementing my suggestions, as this does not take the place of medical advice. So, the general individual out there can say that they have rough days every now and then, but quite often, those that I work with, and I can say in my own journey, you have lots of rough days related to POTS or chronic fatigue or other ongoing conditions that you're trying to navigate. And it can be tough to figure out how to have more good days, let alone how to get through the rough days. So I'm happy to say that typically there are a couple things that stand out, the more clients that I work with. And that's what some of my tips I'm going to share today are based upon. But something to remember is that gradually you can begin to figure out what is contributing to having more rough days or leads you into what I sometimes call a downward spiral of what feels like a string of rough days or weeks. Some may label this as a flare, to reverse it and come back up out of that into having more good days. That's something that I'd say more than 50% of the clients that come to me have that particular goal, to have more good days than bad, and to learn how to come up out of rough days. So, all of this said, we're all on our own unique journey. So realize that what I'm sharing may fit you right where you are, and I'm happy to talk to you more. I'll give some more information on that in a bit if you're kind of curious about what I'm sharing is applicable to you. So, something to help figure out why you're having more rough days could be beginning to use some objective measures. The PT in me is a big fan of objective measures. These things can include a pain scale, a fatigue scale. You can keep it pretty simple. You don't necessarily have to use a previously made one, although there are ones out there, but just rating it from 0 to 10 to see how you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and then thinking about what you did the day prior or a couple days prior that contributed to how you're feeling. Because again, those rough days typically don't come out of the blue. It may take a couple days for them to set in, but there's usually a pattern that leads up to them. Some common triggers can be increased stress, increased pain, poor sleep, having something that you're reacting to in the environment. Like every year when, actually noting on this video, one of my eyes looks a little red, but noting that allergies can be a trigger for some of us that have POTS, especially those that also deal with histamine or mast cell issues, and to be mindful of steps you can take to help address those particular issues. Other things can be increased activity beyond what your window of tolerance for your nervous system is, trying to push a bit too hard, increased exposure to people that may be more draining for you, and trying to change to a diet that may not really suit what your body's needs are. To get your thoughts rolling, one of my favorite objective measures, and I've talked about this in other videos, is using heart rate variability as it's kind of a proxy to see how well the recovery side of your nervous system is kicking in. And you can begin to see changes in that pretty soon or a couple days after you start being depleted or not being able to recover from whatever you are putting your body to, or whatever outside, I label them as stressors, are coming in and affecting you. That again could be food, people, workload, exercise. The list is pretty long. The other metric is looking at what your heart rate trends are. And yes, your heart rate tends to trend a bit higher with POTS. but there are some patterns you can see in your heart rate trend if you start looking particularly at how things are affecting you. So we have a guest in this video. So all of that said, how do you put the pieces together? Well, once you figure out the triggers, which is I want to say a big piece of coaching for those that I work with, even for those that I do the physical therapy services with, so you can build from there and decide how much you can integrate a particular new activity in the realm of like PT, or in coaching if you're looking more at stressors or sleep or diet or anything that's different that may be impacting your nervous system. You have to also know what state your nervous system is in. I've talked a bit about this before, but there are common states that our nervous system is in. There's one where you're in a state of fight or flight, where you're in adrenaline and cortisol is surging, typically higher heart rate. You may feel more anxious, irritable, have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. Many with POTS refer to these as like an adrenaline surge state that you're shifting into. There are others that are a bit different. You can also shift into a shutdown state when your body is just overwhelmed with stress and you feel very fatigued. I feel like I'm sinking into the sofa, or you just feel like you can't really move. You feel kind of hopeless or stuck, maybe even depressed. So there are feelings and physical sensations associated with these states. The state that we're trying to shift into, and I'll be sharing tips in a bit to help you shift into that state, is a regenerative state. Oftentimes people call this the ventral vagal state, for those that are familiar with the polyvagal theory, or the side of our autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic branch that helps us rest, digest, and recover. And that is the one that I was referring to a bit with the HRV, to see how well that side of our nervous system is kicking in. So, tips to help you shift into this more regenerative state to help you get through rough days. These are in no particular order. I'm sharing them just out of kind of the top 3 things of the stuff that I have written down here to share on the video. But you may resonate with one of these more than the others, or it may be in all 3. So the first one, or my really go-to, I should say, is thinking about nourishment. Yes, this includes hydration, this includes food, but this also generally, globally, includes what refills your energy cup, or you could say your energy battery, versus what drains your energy cup or puts holes in your energy cup or drains your energy battery. So certain things like not getting adequate hydration. The recommendations for hydration ranges for those with POTS. It's really important to check with your doctor. For most individuals, even those that don't have POTS, they're 50 ounces of water or more. For those of us with POTS, it's a bit more than that. It's closer to 66, sometimes up to 90 ounces. And knowing how much electrolytes, and which electrolytes in particular your body needs in order to keep that fluid balance. And as I mentioned in another video before, it's not all about the sodium. It's actually important to consider the other electrolytes like magnesium and potassium and calcium, as those affect your recovery, your heart rate, and how you feel, impacting your nervous system, and if you can shift into that regenerative state. The other piece is, of course, the food that we intake. The fuel we intake directly impacts how we feel. It actually impacts our nervous system, and you can see changes in your HRV with it. Those of us with POTS are typically more sensitive to blood sugar fluctuations, so figuring out what particular balance of macronutrients, so protein, fats, and carbohydrates that really help you feel your best, is super important when it comes to being able to get through the rough patches. That may sound a little bit counterintuitive, thinking, well, how am I going to feed myself if I don't feel good? And I've definitely been there myself. That's where working with someone like me as a coach, or pairing up with a dietitian or a nutritionist, or potentially even asking a primary care doctor Do you have any guidance on some quick meals, healthy meals that I could go to? They may be able to direct you in a particular way. So some of my go-tos are definitely protein packed, and I like to keep them on hand. I've made another video talking about how to eat well when you're in a POTS flare. I can put a link below this video to that one. But keep in mind, every little bit counts. So even a small change in that area can make a big difference. The other piece that I was talking about with the nourishment is knowing what drains you and what refills you when it comes to that cup analogy or the battery analogy. For some people, being around others is very recharging, but for others, like myself, I have learned that I need some personal alone downtime to be able to recharge or refill my cup, or I get very drained. There can be other things that really can help refill you or recharge you, like time outside, music, doing your favorite hobby. Shifting yourself into more of that calm, ease, gratitude state is super helpful for your nervous system to recover. The second big tip is introducing gentle movement on those rough days. And depending upon where you are in your journey, this movement may look quite different. For many years, saying to go on a short walk would have not been a form of gentle movement for me. And it's definitely seen that trend in others that I've worked with, both as a coach and as a PT. So figuring out ways to do gentle movement that isn't quite as taxing can be very helpful. I'm a fan of havening and somatic techniques. I'm also a fan of doing gentle yoga. I actually teach a mindful motion class. If anyone listening to this is interested, you can Zoom in if you're not local to Richmond, Virginia, where I am, but it's every Saturday at 11, and it's a great class to get you started, as it's created for those with fatigue or POTS-like symptoms in mind. So something else that can be helpful is tapping into breath. I consider breath work a form of gentle movement because it does engage your muscles. It does require some brain body, or you could say mind body connection for the nervous system to tap in and control your breath. There's actually a way to tap into a particular breathing rate to see which one gives you the most boost for your recovery. That is a piece that I do include with coaching, and that layered on with pacing it with a mindful motion can be very helpful to shift your nervous system back into a recovery state and out of a rough day. So, and my final tip, I will say, was one that if someone had suggested to me maybe 5 years ago, I would have shaken my head at. But now that I've done quite a bit of healing myself and worked with clients and looked a bit into the research, there's actually some good research out there on the power of mindset when you're having a rough day. It's not to say that it is all in your head, it's definitely not, but the mind has a strong effect on the body. The mind has a very deep connection to our heart, and the emotions that we have can actually change our heart rhythms, pulling us into more of an energy depleting state or an energy renewing state. And this communication from our heart rhythm to our nervous system can affect our energy levels. So where do you start with this? Well, something that I like to start with if I'm having a rough day would be just to take a moment to recognize how I'm feeling and then identify how I would like to feel. So if I'm feeling frustrated or irritated or overwhelmed, I may say, well, I want to feel calm or at ease, or I want to have a sense of clarity or peace. So again, you pick an emotion that you'd like to shift to, and then you bring to mind a situation in which you experienced that emotion in the past. It could be present, it could be very far in the past, or it could be a visualization of a place that evokes that sense of calm or ease or peace. This is where gratitude practice, believe it or not, has a big effect on the body. To shift from being frustrated to being grateful can really help with how you're feeling. But if it's tough to really find a particular emotion, using visualizations, or some great guided ones out there, tons of app options that you can use. to help you, again, shift your mindset from that depleted, draining emotion to a regenerative emotion like gratitude, peace, appreciation. The other one I like to do, especially if I'm short on time, is doing a very short self-affirmation like a mantra. I am safe, I am strong, I am resilient. You can come up with your own. That can be one to just remind yourself that you do have the resilience or the ability to bounce back within you. So that said, remember that you do have the ability within you to bounce back from those rough days and have more good days. And if you'd like to learn more personalized tips or talk with me about what it would be like to work with me, you're welcome to reach out for a free 45-minute discovery session I offer for all potential clients. There's a link below this video, or you're welcome to email me at megan.varner@guidetoresilience.com.